Hey everybody, this is Peter with Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to take a look at another role-playing game, and that is going to be Death in Space. And this one is put out as part of the Free League Workshop from Free League Publishing. It is a science fiction role-playing game. You and your players are going to be playing in a collapsing universe where there is the strange void that is creeping and mutating people and things. There are no new machines. All machines are growing derelict, and you will be out there taking jobs and contracts, trying to fulfill them, keeping your ship running, keeping your people and your crew alive as long as you can in the midst of a dying universe. So it's a really cool looking game. It is a small book. It's not going to take very long to make your way through as you're reading it. It is a really cool looking book. I love this kind of holographic design that they've got here going on the cover as well. So we're going to go ahead and take this down to the table, open it up, see what Death in Space is all about. And then afterwards, we'll come up from the table and I'll give you my final thoughts on Death in Space. So we're down to the table with Death in Space, a science fiction role-playing game published in 2021. I'll read the back of the book real quick so we know what we're getting into. Death in Space takes you to the grimy blue-collar future of a dying universe filled with risk and opportunity, where technology is broken and dirty and society is harsh and desperate. This book includes an introductory scenario and plenty of tables and tools to get you started immediately. Create unique characters marked by cosmic mutations and void corruption. Customize your crew's spacecraft or space station and salvage spare parts for repairs. Take risky jobs to survive in the lawless and war-torn Tenebris system. So Death in Space is, like it says there, set in a universe where everything is collapsing. The universe is no longer expanding. It has stopped and is now beginning to collapse, according to rumors and some beliefs, even though there are plenty of people out there who do not believe that that is happening. But as the universe is collapsing, there's a thing known as the void that is bringing up upon people these mutations. And because of a war called the Gem War, new spacecraft and technologies are no longer being invented, and everything that is still there is old and starting to fall apart. And so people are constantly in the process of finding spare parts to try to fix the technology that they have to make it work a little bit longer. So let's go ahead and begin our flip through the book. So as the back of the book said, there are plenty of tables and charts in this book to help you along your way, and that is shown here at the very beginning, just here on the end pages of the book. Both end pages, the front and the back, are full of tables. So we got tables here. We've got a cheat sheet here for just kind of a fast, quick recapping of some of the rules of the book. First page in, we have our title page with all of our creators and playtesters, illustrators, all of the individuals who had a hand in putting this book together. And you can see right away that our art design or our color layout is going to be very our color layout is going to be very dark. It's a lot of black backgrounds with a little bit of color making it pop in places. Because there are so many tables throughout the book, I love this. On the table of contents page, right before it, we just have a list of every single table available in the book with the page number that it's on for quick and easy reference to the tables that you could possibly be rolling on. And then our table of contents breaks the book down with an introduction, character creation, hub creation, and then the general rules for playing the game, extra rules and information for the game itself, and then tables and tools. So not a ton of different sections. And as you can see here, the book itself is not a very large book. It's around, let's see here, it's 128 pages. So not a huge book, and it's kind of very sparse, which I like. It leaves a lot of room for personal creation. But let's go ahead and get into it. I will quickly state, we've got a lot of black, a lot of white text on black, red text on black, yellow text on black, and even a little bit of like this green, and all of that works pretty well. This blue text though on black, I really don't care for. It just disappears unless you're looking really close. So if that would be just like a quick con here, is that choice of the blue just really disappears on the black. Everything else though pops right off the page, and I think it works really, really well. So you can kind of see there's the blue there, but the further away you get, it definitely gets harder to see that. So this is where we get our introduction to the book itself, a collapsing universe and the gem war. Again, like I said, the collapsing universe, everything is coming to an end. The universe is collapsing in upon itself, and while that is happening, this void is spreading and causing mutations and different things to happen to people, and that will be shown as void corruption and possible void mutations for the player characters. The gem war itself is quickly touched upon here in this part, where it just talks about these gems that were found in the Tenebris system, and they were highly valued for their use in advanced technology. Of course, because corporations are corporations, they decided to go to war to see who could get access to them and maintain control over them. And that led to massive fallout, people no longer working together, corporations no longer working together, to everyone's detriment. And now no new things are really being created. Everything is lawless. And even though the war has ended over a decade ago, the fallout is still being felt dramatically. We've got some really cool art throughout this entire book. They leave a lot of blank space, allowing for an ease of reading the book. So I actually really love the works of art, and then lots of blank space. It's easier to take in the information for myself anyways. So we get into information about the decay of the central rule. Your reputation is going to be the new law, or reputation is the new law. And so you're going to be taking jobs for people, for yourself. And as long as you've got a contract, then you are probably going to have a pretty good reputation. If you don't have a good reputation, you will not be getting contracts. No one's going to hire you to do anything. And that just means you're no longer useful. And so you want to remain useful, you want to gain contracts, and you want to be out there doing things, staying active. Otherwise, you're just another part of the decaying world. A little bit of information about the starting up of the campaign. Everyone is going to create their characters. That can be done by making choices on charts or rolling so that you get random starts. Then there's also some information here on the Iron Ring, because their suggested startup for the game is that you start your campaign on the Iron Ring. And the Iron Ring, kind of illustrated here, is a giant ring of spacecraft, shuttles, space stations, debris that has all just been melded together in the Tenebris system, and people live there. And going from one portion to the next, you're going from one district to another, one sector to another, can be very dangerous. Living on the Iron Ring can be very dangerous, as living anywhere in the world in this game. But they suggest kind of starting here and your group having their own part, their own sector of the Iron Ring, whether that be a ship of their own or a hub of their own of some kind, and having it be a part of the Iron Ring, at least at the beginning. It even talks about how there are parts of the Iron Ring that aren't really held together all that well. So to travel from one sector to another, all of a sudden you're having to do an EVA with your suits on so that you can get to the next part and still be alive, as there's no oxygen in space. So getting started, we start with character creation in the game here. And again, like I said, character creation is down to these rollable charts, or again, you can just choose for yourself. You're going to have abilities that you're going to choose: origin, character details, past allegiances. You're going to figure out your hit points and defense ratings, and you're going to figure out your starting gear and starting bonus. In the game, your character has 4 abilities. There's going to be their body, their dexterity, their savvy, which gets used for perception, intuition, and piloting spacecraft, and then also tech, which is understanding and operating technology, and also any ranged attacks that you might have. Body does the melee attacks, and dexterity is your reflexes and your poise and your speed. You're going to generate these values by rolling 2d4, 2 4-sided dice, one at a time, and you're going to roll the first one, and then you're going to roll the second one, and you minus the value of the second one from the first one. So if you would roll a 4 on the first d4 and a 2 on the second d4, then your value would be 2. It also states alternatively, you could roll 2 different colored d4s at the same time, making sure that the red one was your negative number and the yellow one was your positive number, and you could figure out your stats from that. Then with your origins, you have 6 different options here. One's called the Carbon, one's the Chrome, the Punk, the Soul Pod, the Velocity Curse, and the Void. And each one of these is explained in the text, and you can choose one of those or again roll on the chart. And then under each one of those origins, there's just 2 benefits, and you choose one of them. So you're going to choose your origin and then choose one of the 2 benefits that come with that origin. So then the third part is your character details. You have 4 charts that you're going to be rolling on. You have your background, your trait, your drive, and then on the next page over, your character details. Continued is your looks chart. So it's on those 3 different pages there. So you're going to choose your background. Your background is it's like a title, but you don't get any description of what that title stands for. So it's up to you to decide what is that going to look like for you. You're going to kind of have to define that for yourself. Then you're going to roll on the trait. That is going to be kind of your defining trait as you role play your character. The drive for your character. Why are they out here in the universe doing what they're doing? You'll go ahead and go over to the next page where you can roll or choose on what it is that they look like. And then you're going to make sure to wrap things up for that part by choosing a name for your character. Step 4 is past allegiance. And so this is bringing into play the gem war that we mentioned earlier in the book. And it's trying to figure out what was your character doing during the gem war. Where did their allegiance lie? Was it to an idea? Was it specifically to their family? Maybe you were on the winning side or the losing side. Maybe it was all about the contract, or maybe you just didn't have any allegiance at all. You were in it only for yourself. Number 5 is your hit points and defense rating. This is another time for us to roll a couple of die. You start with 1d8, so that's 1 8-sided die, maximum hit points. So you're going to roll a d8. That's how many hit points you have. And then when you rest, you're going to recover 1d8 plus your body stat point worth of hit points. So you start with just a 1d8 worth of hit points, so that's anywhere from 1 to 8. And then as you recover later in the game, you're going to roll the d8 again and then add your body, with again this being your maximum there. Your defense rating is a measure of how well you can avoid damage, and then your unarmored defense rating is 12 modified by your dexterity. So whatever your dexterity roll is, you'll add that to 12 for your unarmored defense rating, and then you can always increase that by wearing armor. And page 123 talks about some armor. I absolutely love this piece of artwork here. So all of the artwork, again, black backgrounds with white, and then every once in a while you'll see little pops of color throughout. So it's very sparse looking. I like that. Gritty. Gets compared a lot to Mork Board, also put out by Free League Publishing, with its dark and gritty look that it has to it. I think it's very evocative. Step 6 is figuring out your starting gear and your starting bonus. And again, same thing as as previously, there are rollable charts where you can choose from them. Starting kit, you can either choose from the Prospector, the Ring Thug, the Mercenary, the Nomad, the Engineer, or the Explorer, and those are all explained here as to the things that you may have. Starting bonuses that you might have, you could start the game with a random cosmic mutation, possibly. You could get some higher HP right away. You might start off with a heavy EVA suit or a pistol or other multiple things, an AI guard animal, which I think is kind of fun. I like that a lot. I would want that myself. Personal trinkets as well. You're going to roll and have a personal trinket at the beginning of the game. And that's it for character creation. So let's take a quick look again. That was 6 steps. All of those is either something that you're choosing or rolling on a table. Either one, however you want to do it, you can do it that way. Another nice thing to know is that if you're going to be playing this and you want to really randomize things, there is a deathinspace.com website where you can go and you can just click a button and it will randomly generate a character for you for this game, as well as your hub, which we're going to get into next. Part 2 here, hub creation. So your hub for your group and for your game is either going to be a spacecraft or a space station, whichever one of those two your group would like to choose. And you're going to start out that, and you're going to be reading through the information about power source and the core functions that are part of the hub itself. Step by step for the hub is you're going to choose your type and the frame statistics for it. Also, you're going to choose the power source and output power, your hub background, and your hub quirk. So all of these steps are laid out for you the same way that character creation was laid out. So I'm not going to go through all of that. Another wonderful piece of art for one of our spacecraft. I think this one's pretty awesome looking. The hub background is something that I think is really, really fun. They have 2 different rollable charts depending on whether your hub is going to be a spacecraft or a station. And this is going to tell you for the background, what was your ship or your station doing in its previous life with its previous owners. And I think that is a fun way to, again, be building up the background. I can't help but think of, Firefly. Not that the world is very similar at all, but the idea of just like wanting to know what was, Serenity doing before it was Serenity. If anybody out there is Firefly fans. So finding out, what your ship or your station was doing before it was your ship or station. And then I absolutely love this ship, mostly because all I see is this big giant eye here, and it makes me think of a creature from a popular role-playing game out there that has a giant eye on it. It's reminding me of that a lot. So hub quirk, you're going to figure out what is this one bit of strange or annoying thing about your hub. Whether that's a ship or a station, there's this one chart here, and that's it. You have created your hub for your characters for this game. Now, playing the game itself. Some general rules. You have, again, your 4 core abilities here, and it talks a lot about in the game if the players decide to do something that doesn't have any large consequence to it, or it doesn't seem like it would be very challenging, then no need to roll. You're having a discussion, you let those things take place. But if the thing that they're doing could possibly end bad for them, or could be considered to be challenging or uncertain, then you could go ahead and have them make ability checks. And the ability checks are easy. You roll a d20 and you add the relevant ability. Again, there's just 4 abilities. It's either body, dexterity, savvy, or tech. Roll a d20, add the ability modifier. That's it. As long as they can roll equal to or greater than 12, they succeed. Otherwise, they're going to fail. And if they fail, they gain a void point. Void points are going to accrue. You can get rid of them, but if you get too much, then things could turn poorly for them. If there are opposed rolls, again, very simple. You roll the d20, you add the ability, and then the one who rolls the highest wins. If it's a tie, then the person who initiated the action would win. There is the ability for advantage or disadvantage in the game, and again, that's just rolling 2d20s and taking either the higher number or the lower number, depending on advantage or disadvantage. Item slots are kind of a bit more of bookkeeping in the game. Probably seems to be the one biggest part of bookkeeping that you might come across in the game, because each person is only going to have 12 plus their body number of item slots, and this is how they carry things around in the game. And if you're carrying too much, then all of a sudden you're going to be rolling with disadvantage on all of your actions. So people are going to have to keep track of how many slots they have and how much they're carrying around, and it's depending on, is it a small item, a normal sized item, or a large item, as to how many slots it will take up in their inventory. So you will need to be keeping track of that as players and as the GM, whoever it is that's going to be running the game. And then there are reactions for non-player characters as well. And so if for any reason the non-player characters would need to be making reactions, you can find out what is their take on the players. If you don't know right away, if it's kind of ambiguous, then you could roll on this chart to figure out what you think those NPCs are feeling towards the players. So we mentioned real quick there that you could gain void points in this game if you fail a roll. If you fail a roll, you gain a void point. Once you have 4 void points, then things happen. That's the most that you can have at any one time, and you can use those void points towards either gaining advantage on an ability check or an attack roll, or activating one of your cosmic mutations. Cosmic mutations can be gained at the very beginning of the game if you happen to have that as a starting bonus in your character creation, or you may gain it as you advance your character in the game. And then every once in a while, in very rare situations, when the void is let loose in the game, you could possibly also be gaining cosmic mutations. So then void corruption. If you have void points and you decide to use the void point to gain advantage, and then you roll and you still fail that roll, then you now have to roll a d6. And if you roll a 1, then you are going to have void corruption. You're then going to need to roll a d20 on the void corruption chart to see what kind of void corruption happens to you. And there's all sorts of different things. When you try to sleep, you see through someone else's eyes rather than being able to sleep. A part of your body becomes surrounded by a cloud of darkness. You have a vision of the end of the universe, a crushing darkness that envelops all. Change one cosmic mutation for a new one. So different things that can happen. But again, though that process is if you fail an ability check, you would gain void points. If you decide to use the void points to gain advantage on a roll and fail that roll with advantage, then you roll a d6. If you roll a 1 on the d6, then you have to roll on a d20 on the void corruption chart. So there's definite steps there that get you there, and the likelihood of it happening is kind of low, but it's still a possibility. And again, the other thing that you're using void points instead of rolling for advantage is possibly, utilizing one of your cosmic mutations in the game. Here is your list of cosmic mutations. All sorts of different things. They've got their names, they've got their descriptions. I'll just give you a couple here. 1, telepathy, can put a single word or feeling in another person's mind. Okay. Magnetic blisters form on hands and feet. The magnetic force is strong enough for climbing on walls and ceilings. Interesting as well. 2 hearts, can run, climb, jump, and lift twice as much as usual. Well, that's super helpful. And then black hole monster, can create a portal and from it lure a creature. Roll a random creature on page 94 and roll for a reaction on page 37 with a -2 modifier. So you could possibly be talking to people in their heads. You could possibly be climbing walls with your magnetic limbs. You could possibly have 2 hearts, or you could possibly be luring creatures from the void. So cosmic mutations, very interesting, very cool part of this game. And then here, condition and spare parts. Again, this talks about the fact that everything in this world is old and falling apart. There are no new things being made. So as you are out on contracts scavenging for parts, you might be scavenging for yourself. You might be scavenging for somebody else. Your payment for a job might be in spare parts that you can store up and have just in case your ship or station decides to start falling apart. So spare parts, breaking objects, reducing the condition of items is all part of the condition and spare parts portion of the game. Also, there's a whole section here talking about repairs, how you can try to make the repairs yourselves, or you may pay somebody else to help make repairs for you. And then a whole section here on going out extravehicular activity suits. So in your EVA suits, whether they be heavy or light, talks about how much oxygen you will have while you're out doing your things out in space. Talks about what would happen if you're ever exposed to space without a suit or with a lack of oxygen, possibly dying, and what it's like to be in zero gravity. So some really cool information here for you as you're doing your EVAs, because again, you're definitely going to be doing that as part of this game as you're scavenging for parts. We've got some information here on space travel, making risky maneuvers, how much fuel that might use if you were ever to just run out of fuel. It talks about how your ship will respond, and then you're going to have to figure out how to get fuel. Lots of different travel complications that you can roll on these little charts here for while you're within the system, or if you're traveling between systems, or even just traveling between galaxies possibly. All sorts of really good information on the long distance travel of the game. And then of course, you know, it's still a role-playing game, and we still have the possibility of weapons and combat. So it talks a little bit about combat rounds themselves, the initiative and turn order. Attack rolls is resolved again by rolling a d20 and adding the player character's body number to their roll for all their melee attacks, or their tech number for their ranged attacks. And again, if it's equal to or greater than the opponent's defense rating, then you're going to hit. Again, talks a little bit about what your defense rating is. And then the idea of risky attacks, possible critical hits. That's again rolling a natural 20 on the d20 die. Condition loss, cover and shields, because you can take cover and have shields and possibly gain cover by taking that, so that it's harder for people to hit you or for you to hit your enemies. Enemies in combat, and morale. There's also some information on death and healing. When someone ends up at 0 or less hit points, they are dying and must immediately roll a body check. Void points can be spent for advantage. If successful, the person is stabilized but unconscious until resting, and if the check fails, they're dead. So, body check. Once you hit 0 or less hit points, you have to make a body check. You're going to be rolling that d20, and you're going to be adding your body. And again, success is a 12 or higher. So if you roll less than that, you immediately die. So again, this is death in space. So you don't ever want to let yourself get to 0 or less hit points, because, you know, there is a good chance that you could possibly die just by trying to make that body roll. But don't forget, you can use any void points you may have towards rolling with advantage in that. If you die, this was not how you were meant to leave this universe. As the last drops of life leave your body, you have a final vision accompanied by deafening static. And when a player character dies, roll their true death from the table on the facing page and let the player narrate the way they were meant to die to the rest of the table. And so this would be, again, this is how you die, but this is how you were meant to die. And I'm not going to read any of those because I think it would be more fun for you out there who are going to be playing this game to read those for yourselves when that time comes. Spacecraft Confrontations, whole section here on when spacecraft have combat. So again, talks about rounds in turn order, non-hostile situations and hostile situations, actions that you can take while on the spacecraft, risky maneuvers, information about distances, because there is a chart here. You have the player spacecraft, and then you have detection distance, identification distance, firing distance, and boarding distance. And so it's going to talk a little bit about the things you can do depending on how far away the non-player character spaceship is from your player character spacecraft. Information on movement and fleeing and boarding, firing and condition loss. Again, condition is how healthy is your ship. Depending on condition loss, you may eventually need to start making repairs on your spacecraft. Frame damage possibly happening to your ship, and again, more information on the non-player spacecraft. And then we do have a D12 here list for spacecraft disasters, if a disaster would happen to take place. Then we have advancement. Advancement in this game is pretty simple. There's no huge XP to worry about. You're going to have probably small amounts of experience points, and you're going to gain experience points at the end of each of your gaming sessions by answering the following questions. If you can answer yes to the question, you gain an experience point. Did you repair something? Did you deliver on a dangerous contract? Did you use at least one void point? Did you discover a new and potentially dangerous place? Did you gain a new enemy? Did you find someone new that you can trust? Did you contribute with something especially memorable? Once you add up the experience points, then you have the chance to spend experience points, and they have here a list of things that you can spend those on. You can increase an ability by 1, raising it to at most +1, and you can use 5 experience points for that. You can increase an ability by 1, raising to +2 or higher, and that costs a differing value of either 3 times whatever the value it is being raised to. You can increase your maximum hit points by 1d4. That's also 5 experience points. You can gain a cosmic mutation. One ability must be lowered by 1 and determine the mutation randomly by spending 15 experience points. Or you can gain 1 additional origin benefit, and you can have at most 2, another 15 experience points. So as you are playing the game, this is how you gain the experience points. These are the things you can spend them on. If you get a yes answer to every single one of these questions at the end of a session, at most you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 experience points. So that is how advancement is used in this game. Again, it is called Death in Space. You're never probably going to have a whole lot of hit points out there, so death is likely before you make too many advancements, but you never know. You might be the one to stick it out for the long haul. That is everything you really need for character creation, your hub creation, and the general rules of the game. We're about halfway through this book. Everything else is just information about the game and the world. Principles in the game here, nothing is new. We've talked about that already. Communication. The war is still present, so even though it's over, people are still thinking about it. Distant stations are silent. Traveling takes time. Who wants to live forever and involve the players and rules and rulings? So again, anybody who's going to be running the game, this is kind of for you, okay? And a lot of this other stuff later is for you. So they didn't state directly here extras are for the games master, but that's really what this is. I mean, players absolutely can read it as well, but this is mostly going to be information for the person who's going to be running the game. This is one of the few books that doesn't really mention the word games master or GM or any words to those effects. But obviously, someone's going to be out there putting the game together for the players. And again, extras is mostly for you. There's information on the Tenebris system. And as they go through this section, they're going to give you some distances and how long they would be to travel between these places. You're also going to have information on planets and moons and things throughout the Tenebris system. This is going to give you a lot of the idea behind the world. So all of the lore that you may be looking for when running the game is going to be found in this extras section. The majority of it is going to be here. Really cool picture of this mining outpost. More information on the Tenebris system. And now we have some information on some of the strange cults that are being followed throughout the Tenebris system and the world. So you will be wanting to read this as possible non-player characters and enemies, or maybe not enemies, that your player characters will come across. This is going to give you a good idea of what groups they may be a part of. Have the section Welcome to the Ring. This is the introductory scenario that whoever is running the game will be running for the players if they're hoping to start a campaign utilizing this pre-made scenario for you. It's called Welcome to the Ring. So I will not be flipping through this because it's going to have information that the players will not want to have. And if you're out there going to run the game, then you're going to get the book, and it comes with this scenario. The scenario itself is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 pages long. So not a very long scenario, but it's going to give you all the information you need for that very first session of the game, if you are starting your game or campaign on the ring itself. That's the conceit of this session, is that you're going to be starting your players on the ring, the iron ring that we talked about at the beginning of the game. The rest of the book is full of more tables and tools that you can utilize as you play the game. We're not going to go through each of these, but some of these are going to be creatures that you could be throwing at your players, obstacles that they might come across, space encounters that you could throw at them, all sorts of good stuff. And there is a lot in here because, like I said, it does take up the rest of the book. So it's about 30 pages or so just of information that you can use to fill out your sessions and things to put your players through as you play the game. And that's it. It ends, like we said at the very beginning, with this cheat sheet as well. So that, everybody, is Death in Space, being put out by Free League Publishing as part of their Free League workshop. So let's go ahead and come up from the table now, and I'll give you my final thoughts on Death in Space. All right, so we're back up from the table. We've taken a look at Death in Space, and I can tell you that I find this to be a very intriguing game. It is sparse on some information. I think it's one of the first role-playing game books that I've ever read through that doesn't answer the question, what is a role-playing game? Not talked about at all in this. Not even a paragraph. Doesn't talk about it at all. It doesn't talk about the games master, the person who's going to be running the game. Doesn't call them out by any name or title. It just throws you in. Here is a core rule book, and that is it. I assume that they are assuming that if you've picked up this game, you know what a role-playing game is. You know that you, as the person who purchased the book, is more than likely going to be the person running the game, so you don't need to know what a games master is or what it is that they do. It just gives you the information. So I found that to be very interesting and actually kind of refreshing. Don't worry about all this other stuff. Just here's the book. You know what you're doing. You've played role-playing games. Now, if this is your first role-playing game ever, you might be wondering where that information is. You might be looking through, you're like, oh, okay, well, if I'm running the game, what am I supposed to do? It doesn't really tell you. So I found that to be odd and unique, and for me refreshing, but for somebody new to the role playing games, possibly very frustrating. So that was interesting. I also really enjoyed the ease of reading this book. The layout design for it is fantastic. A lot of blank space. I would normally call it white space because most of the time in books, your pages are white. I guess here I would call it black space because there's just a lot of empty space, making the text on the page easier to read and to consume. It's not just dense text after text after text on a page. I think they did a really great job on the look of the game. It is a dark, end of the world, kind of gritty feel. And so the black pages, of course, it's in outer space as well. So it makes sense that it would be black pages. And then the white font or the red font popping off the page was a really nice touch. I like it. It's very minimalistic and beautiful. The art throughout is fantastic. I love the art. I'm not personally a huge sci-fi person over fantasy. I'm usually more fantasy driven, but the art that is done in this is so detailed and meticulous, and it's just line drawings but beautiful. I really liked the art in the book also. I don't think I have anything really negative to say per se. Um, I think it has everything you need to run the game. I appreciate greatly that even though it is a small book, they took the time to put a beginning scenario in the book, because I for one am not always great at kind of jumping into a brand new game system without at least that little bit of taking me by my hand and walking me through it. So giving me a scenario to run for the players at the outset, and then I can kind of wrap my head around the setting a little bit better that way, is a really great touch, and I really appreciate it. So kudos to the authors for making sure to put that into the book. I think Death in Space is going to be a really fun game to play and to run. I've played another game that I know sometimes gets compared from Freely Publishing, and again, that's Mork Board, where it's gritty, it's dark, it's kind of apocalyptic kind of feel, but this one is set in space. I don't know if it's going to be incredibly similar. I know that that's one thing that people use to kind of correlate between the two, but I'm not sure. I've played Mork Board, I haven't played this yet. Reading through it, it doesn't feel exactly the same. It does kind of have the same metal art kind of feel to it a little bit when it comes to the character drawings. And yes, it's kind of apocalyptic, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to hit quite the same note. But so I could be wrong for sure. Even though it's a small book, there's a lot really going on here rules wise. The rules for the EVA suits and going out and doing those outside of the ship jobs where you're tearing apart derelict ships for spare parts and things, I think is really cool. I love that they put in here information for spaceship combat, in case you come across a rogue spaceship that is not is hostile towards you and your players. I think that's great as well. Character creation is going to be super simple, take no time at all. Another thing that I do want to call out, though, is the deathinspace.com website, where there is a ton of extra materials for anybody. Even if you don't own this book, you can just go to deathinspace.com and you can download a bunch of PDFs and images from them for this game. There's character sheets, because there's no character sheet in here. There are character sheets on there, form fillable PDF character sheets, which I think is fantastic. I love form fillable PDFs. Good posters that you can print out of the Tenebris system, and more. And then there is listed on that site as well information about third-party content. And so they do have kind of an open gaming license, so that anybody, as long as you follow the rules in that gaming license, can make content and sell content or give away for free, their choice, for this game. And so I'm looking forward to seeing over the next year or so, or a couple years, what kind of content might possibly become available. I'm assuming there'll be other scenarios that people will write for this game, which will make me happy because I always love it when somebody does my job for me in creating the scenarios. I find my fun to be running the scenarios. So hopefully we'll see some really great scenarios put out there by third party individuals and selling that or giving that away for free, however they decide to do it. I'm assuming probably through something like Drive Through RPG. We'll just have to wait and see. But I love that they gave it an open gaming license so that people can create that content as long as they're following the rules stated in that gaming license. So if you're interested in finding out anything more than what you've seen on this video, you can always go to freeleaguepublishing.com to see this game and all the other games that they're selling. But again, you can also head to deathinspace.com and see what they have available for you there when it comes to character creation, hub creation, and all the other things. A lot of really great thought and love went into this game. I'm looking forward to playing it and running it with my friends eventually. I hope you found this video to be useful. If you did, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to the channel. See all the other great videos that we're putting out here at Tabletop Gaming Guild. And until we talk again, everybody, keep on playing games.